Really, really sad. Really sad. 500,000 unalived because the Trump administration didn't think that they deserved food and medical care.
What?
Oh, God. Chuck?
Yeah. Good evening. How are you?
Hello, we just need your age.
I am 42.
Okay, how do you feel about the prompt?
Yeah, I still like Trump. What were you saying before that 500,000 what now?
Yeah, do you remember when Trump and Doge defunded USAID?
Yeah.
Did you think that that was a positive or a negative?
Of course it was a positive.
Okay, of course it was a positive.
Hmm.
Well, I'll show you so that you don't think I'm lying. 1 year after the Trump administration began its dismantling of USAID, a model that tracks the impact of USAID funding cuts on global disease prevention programs estimates that more than 762,000 people have unalived as a result of those cuts, including more than 500,000. The reasoning for those unalivings is broken down here.
Hmm.
So pneumonia, tuberculosis, malaria, Ebola, even things like child diarrhea, things like that. Because USAID was defunded, now people are unaliving because they don't have access to the medical care,
Yeah, I
food, and
understand.
water that
Can
was
I ask you a
provided.
question? All the
Well,
places that the
explain, hold
yeah,
on,
yeah,
before you ask me a question. How do
okay.
you feel about this?
Yeah, I'll explain. So, the logic here doesn't actually make much sense because all you'd be saying is that places the United States doesn't currently fund where are dying from these preventable diseases, we would also be responsible for that.
But in the countries that we were already providing this care for,
Yeah, right. But why aren't
since it's
we
been taken away,
responsible for countries
since
that,
it's been taken away, 500,000 have unalived
well, possibly
and
more, right?
over possibly more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. But in respect, then other places that we don't fund, how come we're not responsible for the deaths of those?
Well, honestly, we did fund a lot of
Yeah, but
countries. We
that's not my
provided
question though.
medical.
I'm just saying for countries that we don't fund, why aren't we responsible for the death of those?
Don't we don't fund places like well, actually Italy,
Yeah, again though, why aren't we
right?
responsible for the deaths of
Because
these
in
people?
Italy they provide their own, they're capable of providing
I'm
their
talking
own
in places
medical care, right?
where they can't do
Places
that.
where they can't. Well, again, before you cut me off, we did provide for most countries that were unable to provide for themselves.
Yeah, I know
These
that,
things specifically for medical
but my
care.
question is in places where we didn't, like, I don't know, like with North Korea, let's say, how come we're not responsible for the deaths of those?
Well, North Korea didn't want our help, so I would say that their leader who refuses help and doesn't want anything to do with the United States, he's responsible for those unalivings.
I see. So then is the United States responsible for the deaths of all where our money would have prevented them from dying from diseases?
If they were a country that was approved to receive USAID
Mm.
funding and it was cut by the Trump administration, yes,
So
we are responsible.
do we have an obligation to forever fund those countries so that nothing bad happens to these
Until these
children?
countries are able to provide it for themselves, if we
Mhm.
have an agreement to provide it for them, yes, we
How
are
come
responsible.
then how come England isn't also responsible for the deaths of in countries that they don't fund?
I would say that the leadership there is responsible if they do not provide adequate care for their citizens.
Well, no, for other citizens outside of their nation.
Because they don't necessarily have the same programs that we offer. They
Well,
have
they're a
some,
very
but
rich
not
well,
as
yeah, but
many.
they're a very rich country.
I'm sorry, as
So
many.
so them not offering up this money to other nations to prevent from dying, they also must bear the responsibility of that, right? They're
No, because they
responsible?
didn't have agreements to do so. If they had agreements to do so and then just overnight retracted those agreements, then yeah, I would say that they're responsible.
Well, I don't even understand this then. So, from my view, if it's the case that I'm dishing
Yeah.
out charity and it's saving lives and then I stop dishing out the charity, you're saying that I'm responsible for the death of those then.
Say that one more time.
If I'm giving charity to like an orphanage and they're all getting fed and they're not dying from, diseases. And then I stop giving charity to the orphanage. Your logic is that I'm now responsible for every child there that dies.
If you had an agreement to do so and you just stop overnight,
Well, what do you mean
yes,
an
I would say
agreement
that
to
you're
do so?
responsible.
Like, we'll just give it to you until we don't want to. That's the agreement.
You think that that's how USAID worked?
Yeah, of course. We have the
Okay,
right to
so
pull out of anything we want
to the
to
United
anytime we want to.
States, we have the right to do so. Okay, who within our government has the right to retract those funds?
Well, usually Congress has the power of the purse, but the president.
Legally, no,
Mhm.
not usually. Let's keep it 100. Okay,
Yeah,
let's speak in fact.
yeah.
Congress has the ability to make those decisions. So Congress, which is made up of elected officials elected by the United States citizens, they can decide whether or not to continue to fund these programs. If they want to take a country off here or there, if they want to add a country to provide aid for, they can do so via a vote by elected officials. Can Doge do that legally?
Yes, they were able to do that legally.
Yes. How did Doge do that legally?
Because when Congress does fund something, there's usually X amount of time in which the president and his administration, who deals in treaties and has access to treaties or various things like this, can adjust funding or various things like this. This is, for instance, I'll give you an example. Joe Biden said that he would not allow funding to go to Ukraine for a particular agreement that they had going there. How was he able to stop that, even though that was within the power of Congress? It's because there's authorization.
Okay. So the president not authorizing funding
Mhm.
is the same as a group of teenagers going through and saying, we're not funding this anymore.
I don't even understand what you're asking me there.
Doge was made up of like college students, and they used, and I believe they used a system, an AI, to just go through and defund a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
USAID was one of them.
probably.
So a group of college students has the legal right to defund aid
Well,
programs.
college students didn't utilize their
Yes,
legal
most
right
of
to
the
do
people
anything. It was the president who used his legal right to authorize them to do that.
to authorize for a bunch of college students to get rid of funds that were allocated by
Well,
Congress.
the president authorizes a bunch of college students to go to war all the time because it's usually 18, 19-year-olds who are in the military. So yeah, I'd like to
Yeah, and
do.
you support
Yes,
the president that just started the war in
but
Iran.
that's
But
that's
before
beside
we
the
get to
point,
that,
though.
before we
That's
get to
not
that,
the point.
but no, you support the president who's doing that. So I don't know why you have a problem with him sending, United States soldiers to unalive for a war
No,
that
I'm
didn't need to
giving
be
you an
started. You support the
example of
administration,
them being
and
18
you
or
think that the
19 not
administration is
mattering.
good. So
Yeah,
I don't know why you're even bringing
I'm just
that
giving
up,
you an
because
example of why 18, 19
he's
doesn't
doing that
matter.
right now, and you said that it was a positive.
Yeah, no,
But
wait, what? I didn't say that.
before we
What are
move
you
on,
talking about? I
hold on,
didn't say that.
before we move
Yeah.
on to the war that didn't need to be started, that Donald Trump started.
Yeah, I'm still confused
There's
as to
someone
how
there's
it's our
someone who,
responsibility if you
hold
pull
on,
charity,
I
though.
don't know. Do men have a problem with listening?
Do
Are you
women have a
proving that men
problem with
and God do
cutting
have a
men
problem with
off?
listening?
Do women have a problem
Because
cutting men off?
I said, hold on about 4 times. Before we move
Women have a
on,
problem interrupting.
there we go. Looks like men have a problem with listening
Looks
and
like women
interrupting.
have an issue interrupting.
Listening and interrupting.
Women have a problem muting.
Before we move on, I'm going to bring someone up who has a little bit more knowledge of a certain aspect of USAID, and you can try to defend the unaliving of 500,000
Well, I'm
children instead of
I'm here to
90,000
talk to you, though.
plus people
Why, you got to call him back up?
unaliving because
Do you have to call him back up?
Doge wanted to do that. No, I wouldn't consider it backup. I would
You're
consider
calling
this
in.
person very
Then
knowledgeable.
I demand
and
that you allow
I
me
think
to
that
bring
you
in
would
backup as
benefit from
well.
talking to him. Or I'm sorry, them.
Then you have to
So
promise
maybe
not to
you would
mute
have
me.
it. So you would. So that. Oh,
You have to promise
cry
not to mute
more.
me.
I think you should cry more.
I think you should cry
Maybe you
more.
would benefit. Maybe somewhere, if you have any kind of empathy left, you might benefit from a conversation. But
With
only
who?
if you can, 1, listen, and 2, not interrupt, and 3, you might have to cry more. I don't know. You might have to.
Kind of a brat.
Anyway, okay. So 1, listen. 2, don't interrupt. 3,
I do
don't
not
insult.
agree to your
And
terms.
4, you might have to cry more.
I do
don't know.
not agree to
But
your
I think
terms.
Hambles.
Yeah, but I
wanted to
haven't
talk to
agreed.
you.
But I haven't
Hambles,
agreed to
if
your
you just want to,
terms.
oh my God, if Chuck can just relax for 5 seconds
Trump
and stop crying.
Trump needs to relax.
Hambles, if you just want to give your age and then share your thoughts.
Am I coming through? Hold on.
Yeah, you're good.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so I think the orphanage example was actually a pretty good example to talk about like how our USAID programs work. Specifically, the example of just overnight randomly pulling all of the funding and then having the collateral be, you know, what the consequence is to these people's lives. Where we built a lot of these systems and institutions. Specifically, what I know a lot about is PEPFAR. We built these institutions to support people in a complex system of care, and then didn't give them any time to build their own structures so that they could support their communities and they could support their own people. So I think the way that we approach USAID and how it was cut randomly, despite the fact that the Senate and Republicans in the Senate opposed this multiple times and were overridden by Russell vote, in which is unconstitutional, by the way, because they do not the executive branch does not have power over the purse in that sense. And I think to pull away that funding so drastically, in which it caused people to lose their lives to very easily preventable diseases, not only ending those people's lives for no discernible reason, but also wrecking our soft power we had with those other countries, I think really showcases that this didn't benefit any of us because also those investments did not go back into Americans' pockets. Those investments did not return back to our country. When the programs were cut globally, the HIV medications in the United States did not go down in price. And our programs were actually cut domestically as well.
Wait, hang on. You're
But
shotgunning a
those are
lot of
just some of
points. Can I
them.
respond to some of these?
Yeah, I was about to literally just say that was like kind of my broad discussion on this of my knowledge. And if you
Okay.
want to go into any specific points, we can.
Yeah, the first thing that you said is that I thought was interesting. Do you think then, using the same orphanage example, that if I retract charity which I was giving, that in a meaningful way means that I'm responsible for the of the people, or in this case, the who are in that orphanage?
Yes.
You do. Okay. So then what would be my incentive to give charity if it's the case that I may cut off charity? And then you will, yeah,
Yeah.
because if I don't give the charity, I'm not responsible then, right?
Well, correct, because part of the way that the programs operate is that whether you think this is good or bad, I still have mixed feelings on it. I don't think it's necessarily good or bad, but we made these groups of people reliant on certain programs that we then didn't help them build infrastructure to become non-reliant.
Yeah, no,
So
I
if we
understand the
really,
argument. I'm just kind of probing the argument, if you don't mind. I just want to ask you a couple of
okay.
questions. So, yeah, the first question is if I don't give charity to an orphanage, I'm no longer responsible, or I'd be right for the deaths of those kids, as long as I'm not giving them charity. It's only if I'm giving them charity that I then become responsible, correct?
I'd say in a way we're all slightly responsible, but yeah, you'd be more responsible if you were giving and then suddenly pulled.
And doesn't that give us an incentive to just not give charity?
No, because it depends on like what you want the world to look like and what you want your community to look like.
Yeah, I know, but it seems like it's an awful big risk if I give charity and then now I become responsible if I ever take that charity away for the well-being of these other people who are basing their survival on me, apparently. What would be my incentive to do that?
Your incentive is that, I mean, do you want to like keep going with the charity metaphor in like
Yeah, the
orphanage,
charity
or do you want
metaphor
like
in the
actually
orphanage. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, so like if we're gonna keep doing like a metaphor for this, one, you'll have more children in your community who will grow up, who will get jobs, who will invest into community, who can pay
Yeah, what do I
taxes,
care?
who
I'm
can
rich.
trade with you. Yeah, so you can only be rich if the rest of the world is functioning, the rest of your community is functioning to allow you to extract that wealth and be rich.
Yeah,
So like
how is Malaysian dying from AIDS going to make Americans less wealthy?
yeah, because it affects our ability to trade with countries and we destabilize
How?
them. So if you want to look at it
How?
totally cynically,
Yeah, how?
then we are unable to extract as many resources from Malaysia because there are less people who are functioning within their economy to do labor, if you want to be very cynical about it.
Yeah, but that also lowers the amount of future potential soldiers that they would have to oppose any power that we had to exploit that country, right?
I mean, that's if you're talking about every country as like a country that we have to invade and fight, which isn't a one-to-one. Like that's not
Oh,
how
I'm
that
not saying it's a
works.
one-to-one. I'm just saying for every tit, you have a tat, right? So if the idea is there wouldn't be as much labor to exploit, it's like, well, that actually might be a lot easier to exploit labor if there's no military there to deal with, huh?
So you're seeing a better world is when we invade every other country because we
Well,
ravage
hang on.
them
You
with
just
disease.
conflated better with what we were talking about, which was you were making a pragmatic argument that they would be better able to trade with us. And so Americans would benefit from that. I'm making the argument back. Seems like they would still have to trade with us. And it seems like that would actually help our position if their military might is in some way crippled from that, huh?
Well, it's not just their military, but it's like their ability to even extract those resources. Like you're
Yeah,
taking
they're not
people who are experienced in their
700,000 is not going to be
in
enough to flip it where we can't extract whatever precious resources we would need from Malaysia. That sounds ridiculous to me.
I never said it was a totality that nothing could be extracted. I'm saying that you are taking this system
Mhm.
that has stability, you are destabilizing it, and it's making it harder to extract trade, soft power, normative relations.
Prove it.
All these things just
Where's your
become more
evidence? Yeah,
difficult.
where's your evidence for it, though? You haven't shown me any. You just keep saying that that's the
Oh, okay.
case. What's the evidence that that's
Okay.
going to destabilize trade, that in some of these nations are going to now dive in because the United States won't give them money?
What would be sufficient evidence for you for that claim? Because it seems like a pretty like normative, common sense kind of claim to make.
Well,
Just as I was giving you the benefit,
normative would be a moral
hold on.
claim.
Hold on. Just as I was giving you the benefit of the doubt that if these people were to lose their lives, then it would be easier to deal with their military.
Yeah,
So if you're not going to give me that benefit of
I'm
that
going to give
claim,
you
I won't give
I'm
you the
going to
benefit
be
of your
super
claim.
hang on, I'll be super charitable to your view and just so that we can make sure that we're both being charitable. I agree. You were charitable to what I said there, so I'll be charitable back. Your argument here is, look, if you're going to have less children who are born, you're going to have less labor. If you have less labor and you have mothers who are in distress because their children are dying from these preventable diseases, then their goodwill and charitability towards the United States and giving us the things that we want in trade and resources is going to at least have some disruption, right? That's your argument.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
The problem with this is like there's a great counter here, which is, yeah, but also if the country is much, much weaker and it's destabilized, it actually makes it easier from a pragmatic perspective to exploit those nations. And that's factually the case. And in fact, the United States often does operations to destabilize nations in order to get the things that we want from them. So, from a pragmatic perspective, it seems like a wash to me. And you'd have to move on to some kind of moral argument.
I don't think it's as one to one as you're stating it to be, just because also like these diseases aren't just contained by borders. Like the way that these diseases can mutate, the way that like having disruptions in food chains affects
Which ones?
agriculture.
Well, which diseases?
Um,
Like
yeah,
that's basically only for the United States and Western nations. It's almost exclusively now a disease, a based disease. Like to be totally frank, it's something that has been dealt with. It's not even a threat to the public anymore.
I would disagree with that
W-
completely.
Well,
I
how?
think that like it does affect more people who are same sex, but it still affect. I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm fine to go into this. This is kind of my background, but if we want to go into the topic of how would you define like what parameters would you want to set forth for it to be defined as dealt with? Like what percentage of people, like what percentage of
that
spread?
that people understand and note that this is a completely 100% avoidable disease except in extremely rare cases, and even in the cases which are extremely rare that you would get it without it being avoidable, it is the case that you can be treated for the rest of your life in such a way that you probably won't even die from the disease. That seems reasonable to me that that's been dealt with.
Okay, so there's two caveats to that. One specifically, the education is still lacking and the behavior is still lacking in the United States, where people are still getting infected. There's about 1 million people or so in the US living with this. And the second caveat to that is that when we allow for these mutations to happen in other countries unnecessarily, we create medication resistant strains
Wait,
such as
hang on.
HIV
There's a
2.
couple there's one point I want to clarify here. It is
Sure.
true that there's still a lot of people who are suffering from this, but it's mostly 2% of the population who has almost 70% of the cases, which is men. Okay, and it's not due to a lack of education, it's due to a lifestyle that they usually live, which is filled with promiscuity. That is factually what's going on. And it's not because they don't know
I
how
mean,
to not get it, it's because they live a high-risk lifestyle, and that's why they usually get it.
if you want to make that argument, I don't really care either way how you want to argue that, but it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we are gambling with other people's lives by allowing the virus to mutate. And if we allow it to mutate and become medication resistant, that pokes a hole in your entire second part of your argument, which is what we're doing.
There's no clinical evidence which has been released in the last 10 years that's stating that mutating into anything which even resembles something airborne or
I never
anything
said
like
that.
this. Yeah. So what do you mean? What mutations? He's
So,
been
real quick,
ravaging.
Chuck,
So yeah. Anyway, back to this. The reason that
Yeah,
I
I
brought
said
that
nothing about mutating to be airborne. I said becoming medication resistant, which is actually happening.
where?
So I already cited like two, like forms of that are resistant to medication. And every time that we take away those medications from the population, we essentially create a petri dish of it mutating even more. And we can't really predict how those viruses are going to react to medications in the future. So we're essentially saying we have solutions to this now in a lot of practical ways, and we're needlessly gambling those solutions and risking the global health and by proxy our own health as a state.
Well, this is a bizarre claim, especially when
It's not.
you say H2, because I have it in front of me. Seems like right now there's actually more treatments for H, where these diseases are less resistant to the treatments than they've ever been. So I don't really know. Like, what do you think is going to happen? AIDS has been ravaging Africa since inception. It's been a
Mhm.
significant and serious problem there. The disease has not gone airborne, and the treatments that you're talking about, again, don't seem to be
Why do you keep saying
problematic
airborne?
because when you're worried about disease mutation, you're worried about disease spreading over a population quickly. That's what the big worry is. People don't generally worry
Yeah,
too
but
much
like
about
the
completely avoidable diseases. That's not usually on the radar.
like you saying airborne, but like the way that the virus is structured, like the way it's very fragile to like exposure. No one is thinking airborne when it comes to this. When we're talking about resistance and mutation, we're talking about medication resistance,
Yeah, I
which has
understand, but these
happened,
are
which is why we have
yeah.
so many different types of treatment. And at the
Mm.
same time, we have slashed all of our funding for research into cures and potential treatment for further mutations. So we're
Well,
just
yeah, it's
taking a
not
huge risk because a
the
lot
well,
of
it's
these
not the
treatments
90s
have been,
anymore, right? I mean, you don't
well, yeah, and
need
we're
to
making
do
it
yeah.
well,
No, we're
we're
not.
turning this potentially into the 90s because when you look at the UN report that literally came out last year, they're predicting that we're going to have more AIDS related deaths in this next decade than we have seen since the 90s.
What? No,
And
they're
that's
not.
one of the,
What?
yeah, you can read the
Okay,
UNH
look,
report.
hang on. New age and related deaths have reached their lowest levels in decades. They're the lowest they've
Uh-huh.
been in decades. What
Yeah,
you're
and what did I
saying,
just cite?
yeah,
What
what
did
you're
I just
saying
say?
is that there's a potentiality of a climb in some nations of these things happening, but that's only a potentiality.
Okay.
But that's not what's actually happening right now. And many times these projections are often wrong, by the way.
What, all scientific projections? I want to go into the claim that most scientific projections are wrong. Is that the direction now?
I didn't say that. I said many times
Okay,
these
then what claim
projections are
specifically?
wrong. The claim specifically that
Okay,
I'm
which
making is that
projections?
we're at the lowest rates that we've had, and there's not great evidence for any of these projections that I'm looking at right this second that there's going to be some huge epidemic of a where are you seeing that?
I already said. What did I say?
Say it again. Let me pull it up and
The
I'll look at
UN
it.
AIDS report, the 2025 UN report.
And where can I find in the UNH report?
You can find it on the UN's website. If you look it up, you can find. I'm sure the PDF is available.
No. Where in the UNH report can I find this information for the
If I remember
projections?
right, I believe it's between pages 20 and 30. I can pull it up. Hold on.
Please do. Since their 2030 goal strategy aims for a 90% reduction infections, and they say that they think that they're
Mhm.
going to get to that. A 90% reduction is what I'm seeing in their projections, sir, by 2030.
Are you reading the 2025 UN report right
Yeah.
now?
Yep. So, have you looked at any of the National Institutes of Health research on this
In regards to what?
in regards to the 2025 expectation for cases?
Is the National Institute of Health reporting on global cases or domestic cases?
Global. It's using the same data, in fact. At least that's what it looks like to me. They're saying that they had much more catastrophic projections for 2025, and they were wrong on the extent of treatment disruptions. I mean, they were severely wrong, and the reason that they were wrong is because some of these nations, what they actually did was they started to actually treat their own citizens instead of relying on foreign money to do so.
Yeah, which I think is a much better option.
Yeah, so
But again, I
then
think
we actually incentivize these nations to begin investing in their own treatment for their own citizens, and we don't have to pay for it.
yeah, so I think this is a false dichotomy of choices to make here. I think the best choice to make would have been us to help them develop an off ramp in which we help them build these facilities to produce these medications and not have to destabilize them and then end the lives of over 100,000 people and nearly 20,000. I think that that was unnecessary as an incentive for
Yeah, but
them.
interestingly enough,
Um,
there's a problem here with the logic, which is if the catastrophic projections were way lower than they were expected to be due to the fact that these other nations began investing in these treatments because they're very cheap now, especially they're actually very cheap treatments now. And
if you own the facilities and the
they can even
companies.
buy those treatments from the United States and Western nations still at discounted rates, even with the USAID cuts. And they're now investing in the treating of their own population due to the demand of these products. Actually, that incentivizes them to build infrastructure to treat their own citizenry. It sounds like in many ways this is the best thing we could have done.
I disagree because in this scenario that you are one, I would love to see the projection comparison because I don't even know what you're citing when it comes to that. Is that cited in the report, the projection failure or like the rate of failure of projection? Like I like to know how many standard deviations it is from like their actual estimation.
Well,
And that's
I'd have to go through the entirety of the data, obviously, to get that
well, I'd
information
like to know
from
where
you.
that claim is even coming from.
Well, this claim is coming from the National Library of Medicine. The study itself was conducted by Chris Behar, Jair. I don't know who these people are, but it's labeled the pandemic where we are now, and it moves through why the catastrophic projections were wrong, and this was due mostly to investments from other nations in their own infrastructure for treatment. And so it seems to me that if you're again being charitable back to the other view, that these countries can now afford these medications at a way cheaper rate than they could have, like let's say in the early 2000s or in the 90s. That in many ways they might have become a little bit too dependent.
So I'm looking at this abstract right now. It's not really making the claims that you're saying it makes. Can you point me to where it agrees with what you're stating?
Yeah, well, if you do you look down at the references there? So all these,
Yeah.
yeah, so all of these have a referent, but inside of the summarization, read it. Actually read it.
Yeah, I read the abstract. Where is it saying
Where
that
did you
these models
read?
were so far off?
Yeah, yeah. So, hang on a second. See if I can't pull this up. That was literally what I just saw 10 seconds ago as I was reading through the cursory study here. Yeah, it looks like they're referencing, well, that's your deal, right? PEPFAR data for what they initially thought that the catastrophic death toll would have been. Can you go back to the earlier predictions of PEPFAR for how many they thought would die and how bad the actual crisis would have been, and then we could make a forward comparison because it looks like they were wrong
Well, like
about how
where is this claim
catastrophic this
coming from
was.
though? Where is this disanalogous claim
Well, do
coming
you have
from?
access to the actual study itself?
For the pandemic where
Yeah,
are we now on PubMed?
yeah.
I have access to the abstract and some of their
Yeah, I
figures.
know,
Do
but
you
the
have full
actual
access
stuff,
to
yeah,
it?
I have access to it, but I pay for these things.
Okay, then how about you put it on screen?
I can't. I have no way to access the camera that way. But this,
So
I'm
we have to
trying.
trust you?
Well, you don't actually. That's why I'm saying I think that maybe we could figure this out even absent the data from the study. If it's the case that we look at the projections and then we just count what actually happened. So can we go back in PEPFAR and take a look at what they projected would happen due to the USAID cuts in 2025? I think even looking at those projections, they were actually incorrect, at least for the catastrophe quote of how bad it was going to get.
Well, what
So,
are the actual
mhm.
outcomes that you're seeing in the paper here that you apparently have full access to? Do you have the exact figure you can cite for me right now?
The exact what?
The exact figure? You should be able to cite that for us.
They're not giving an exact figure. They're saying that
Okay, then the
due
exact
to a
rate of when
PEPFAR analysis, but they don't actually give me access to the analysis. That's why I'm asking you to go back and
they don't even
let's make the
show you the
comparison.
rate that
It
it is
doesn't. It
dismounted.
just makes a referent. That's it.
Then how do you know that it?
I don't. That's why I'm saying let's go back. I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying
Wait,
to
but
be
you
charitable
were
here.
saying that in the full access to this piece you had, that's how you came with that conclusion
Yeah,
that
because
you're
it
saying
makes
it's
the single referent. Yeah.
okay. So what's the number?
It doesn't give me a number. It just makes a referent that catastrophic quote catastrophic projections were incorrect according to early PEPFAR data. That's it. That's the referent.
That's all that it says.
That's all that I found in it so far. Yeah, but can we take a
And you have
look and
full
see?
access, and that's all that it says.
Yes, that's what the reference says. Yes. Can we take a look now? Or no?
I mean, that just seems really bizarre that they would just say that, and there's no like citation, and there's no like
Well,
figure, there's no
there's
number.
tons of citations which are given at the end of this chapter, but it has nothing at all to do with this. It's a single referent. But can you please go back to the beginning? Let's take a look at the PEPFAR projections, and then we'll compare them to right now, and then we'll
Hey,
know.
Amanda, really quick.
Yeah.
I do think that he's completely lying right now. I am going to jump down because I don't really want to talk to someone who's lying about research, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to HA. But you have a good night. I'm a little
Okay.
talked out.
Well, it was nice talking with you. You have a wonderful night.
Yeah, I know who you are. You have the day you deserve.
Oh wait, I didn't
Thanks,
do
Amber.
what the hell? I had a nice conversation with you, man.
Have a good night, Ambles. Thank you.
Anyway,
Right.
well,
So you do have full access to that, right?
what's that?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. What's the question? Hello.
Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. You had me muted. You got to not mute me
Right.
anymore. That's very mean of you.
I
Can you
had to,
promise?
you gotta stop.
You
You
got
gotta
to
stop
hang on. You
complaining.
got to
You
stop.
gotta stop
You got to
complaining.
stop muting. I
You
need
gotta
you.
stop
I want a
complaining and
promise from you
interrupting.
that you're not going to
You
mute
gotta
me.
relax.
You got to
You really do.
You
So you
muted
do
me
have full
again.
access to that,
You
right?
got to
You do have
stop. You
full.
got to stop muting
You
me.
do.
I want to
Hello?
promise that
You
you're going
do
to
have.
stop muting me.
Wow.
Promise you're going to stop muting me.
You gotta stop complaining.
Promise you're going to
It's
stop
okay.
muting me.
Take a deep breath.
Promise.
Okay.
Promise you're going to
Take a
stop
deep
muting
breath.
me.
Okay.
Promise you're going to stop
Take a
muting me.
take a deep breath. Okay, it's gonna be okay.
Say I'm sorry.
You need to be
Say I promise.
okay. So you do have full access to that, right?
Hang on. I want to promise
no?
you're not going to mute me anymore. You keep muting me. I can't even respond.
I'm not muting you.
You keep
The
muting.
mods are because
Oh.
they're supposed to mute when you're not listening to the question being asked.
Well, can
right?
you promise me that you won't mute me anymore? I want to promise.
So you do
Hang
have
on.
full
No,
access
I
to
want
that,
to.
correct?
I want the promise
Okay.
first.
Well, I guess this can just turn into you complaining and acting like a child.
You muted me again.
And no, I'm not muting you. It's turned into you complaining and acting like a child.
And they kicked me.
And no, I'm not muting you. It's the mods. Oh, all right. If you want to run away because you're being muted,
I ran away.
that's fine, I guess.
They kicked
Anyway,
me. You literally just
if
saw
you really
them kick
had
me.
access to that, I wanted you to read it, but you couldn't relax. And now you dropped yourself. So, okay. Anyway, that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the full study. which yes, I had complete and total access to. So these people, they lie like they breathe. They lie like they breathe. Annoying. That's why I think the guy dropped, by the way.
Static, we just need your age.
26.
Nice. Thank you. Why did you want to come up?
I just think it's funny that you were muting the guy that 95% of your audience was here for.
So you're going to complain too.
No, I'm not complaining. I just don't you want your social media to grow and not stay where it's at?
I actually just want to have conversations with people who support Trump and see where they're coming from and have discourse about it. You guys seem to have a big problem with someone being muted by a moderator because they won't stop over talking. I don't think that a lot of people want to hear people talk over each other. It's not really fun, gets kind of chaotic. So when repeatedly asked, kind of like that, you know? I don't see a benefit in just talking over each other. That's why the moderators who are here to help, when you do that repeatedly, they mute you so that it's...
I came in and I got 2 years.
That chick got very annoying very quickly. Let's move on to the next one. That sucks because that actually might have been really good to dive into those precursor numbers, the projected numbers versus the numbers later, but he knew that the catastrophic projections were not actually correct. And that's why I think he left, honestly. I don't think he left because, I don't like it when you misrepresent research. I think he left because he didn't want to make the comparison of the numbers.